I'm going to start here in New York, which I don't like to do. You know, we're being heard on about 200 stations around the country, and I do an American talk show. I don't do a Republican talk show. I certainly, don't necessarily do a New York talk show because most of you, thankfully, have the good sense not to be here. But what's happening in New York politics right now is essentially a guinea pig for what's going to happen at the national level. If Mamdani wins, the Democrats are going to run on an aggressive socialist campaign. Do the Democrats believe socialism works? 99% of them don't. They know better. But they want power a lot more than they want prosperity. If you followed the Democrat efforts of the last 8 years, it has not been a party that presented you with ways to get your family ahead. It has not been a party that was like, we'll improve the schools, we'll lower the crime rates. No, it has been a party of constant demonization. Donald Trump is a Russian asset controlled by Vladimir Putin. All MAGA voters are white supremacists. The cops are systemically racist. None of those things are true. And more importantly, none of those things help you or your kids.
He's a lousy dad, but he's right.
They, by and large, have just been a grievance movement. And when you run on fake grievance, you don't ever have to get into office and accomplish anything. I said this in 2020. I was like, Joe Biden is running, and the slogan is, "This is a battle for the soul of our nation." And I used to say, what does that mean? A battle for the soul of our nation? Number one, it's pretty divisive because you're saying one side of the aisle represents the eternal damnation of the American soul, but your side is somehow moral and righteous and just. The Democrat side that opened the border and let 500,000 kids go missing and get sex trafficked, that presided over 300,000 fentanyl poisoning deaths in this country because of that open border. Exactly the compassionate side. And if you cut police budgets in major cities, you aided and abetted the spiking of the black murder rate by 25%. So when it comes to, the Democrats preserving the soul of our nation,
that is a lie.
Okay, but the bigger lie being told right now is that socialism works. Socialism has starved over 100 million people to death throughout history. It usually ends by death or firing squad, depending on whether you voted for or against the socialists in power. But of course, the old saying was the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of people's money. The problem with modern socialism is these states don't have the money to begin with. Okay, traditionally, socialist government takes over a country that has resources and money coming in and quickly bankrupts the place because the people at the top of that totem pole pocket all the cash, live luxurious lifestyles, and eventually they run out of resources and everybody starves and gets killed. But in this instance, you've got a state, New York, that runs massive budget deficits. You've got a country, America, that's $37 trillion in debt. The idea that we're just going to give everything to everybody is wildly unsustainable. We couldn't do it today, let alone 5, 10, 20 years from now. But here is Elizabeth Warren. She sees class warfare as the path forward. Hey, the Democrats, we're going to help the little people by yelling about the rich people. But what they don't understand about the American spirit is none of us came here, or none of us were born and stayed here, because we hate the idea of rich people. Poor people don't want to hate the rich. Poor people want to be the rich.
That's true. That is true.
In an ideal world, that would be great for everybody listening right now. Of course you'd like to be rich and have more money and make things a little bit easier on yourself. So the idea that they're reverting to more demonization in an effort to say, but we're the party of the little guy, so we're just going to keep taxing the rich. And you know what the rich are going to do? The rich is going to leave.
When you're right, and you're right.
They're not sticking around for this, but let me give you some of Elizabeth Warren, because she flat out says we're going all in on socialism. Okay, here it is, clip 2.
Is this what the party should look like?
Yes. You bet. The Democratic Party needs to stand up and be clear. We are the party that fights for affordability for working families. Mm-hmm. That means child care. That means housing. It means health care. It means making this country work better for the working people who make this country work.
Oh, gosh. Elizabeth Warren. And understand, what is she going for there? Branding. It sounds good. That means child care. That means housing. That means health care. Okay, well, how do we get the child care? How do we get the housing? How do we get the health care? Okay, you don't really get that answer. What she tells you is, we're going to experiment. For real. Listen to this, clip 3.
affordability is the central issue all over this country. And New York City is proof of that. When someone stands up and says, I will lead this city by making it more affordable, and here are my plans, real plans, plans to deliver on childcare, plans to deliver on housing, plans to deliver, we're going to experiment, we're going to try things on groceries. That is the Democratic message.
I mean, come on. We're going to experiment and try things on groceries?
What an idiot.
Which is a fancy way of saying government price controls, which again have starved people and created shortages all over the world. But there is no plan. You just heard her say it. We're going to try things. We're going to experiment on groceries. That's the Democratic We're going to experiment. Again, he's not actually saying we have a feasible, sustainable way to do this. Now, to be clear, at the mayoral level, you actually don't have the wherewithal to do anything he's proposing. That's why I'm not, like, horrified about the idea of Mamdani winning. Do I want him to win? No. Do I think he's good for the city? No. My biggest concern about him winning is he's going to drive away the tax base, because all of this stuff they're trying to give away actually costs money. You don't get anything for free without somebody else footing the bill.
Thanks, big government weenuses.
Okay, and when she says, when someone stands up and says, I'll lead this city by making it more affordable, here are my plans. He didn't tell you what his plans are. Okay, what he told you is Donald Trump is bad. It's too expensive here. I'll fix that. Okay, how? I mean, listen, if it's just about what the guy says, not what the plans are, I could run for president on, hey, if I'm elected, you'll all get to bang Cindy Crawford.
Hubba, hubba.
I know, you'd get votes, but there's one small problem. I can't guarantee you Cindy Crawford's on board with that. Now, in this instance, what Cindy Crawford means is money, okay? Where is the money for him to give away free housing or free groceries or free childcare? It's not out there. It has to come from the taxpayer. And the billionaire class has been fleeing New York City in droves. Okay, they're going to drive out a lot of the middle class along the way. But here's Mamdani talking about the plan. Here's his policies across the country. Clip one.
And we know that this is all happening within a larger national context where Donald Trump is seeking to make it even more expensive to raise a family in this country. It is our responsibility to move beyond the broken politics of the past of our city and our state and start to offer an alternative across this country.
Oh, I'll offer an alternative across the country. Guys, that's not a plan. That's a collection of words. But the bigger takeaway, and this is where I really do feel for New Yorkers, is he's running for local office at a national level. This is how we got the worst district attorney in the history of the city. It's how we got the worst attorney general in the history of the city. Alvin Bragg, he's the guy that presides over the woke bail reforms that let violent criminals back out onto the street.
Everything woke turns to...
You know how we got him? He ran for office by saying, I'll get Trump. Letitia James, the corrupt dirtbag attorney general, literally ran for office at a local level on a national issue. I'll get Trump. Okay, that's how we did this. Kathy Hochul, who was only in power initially because she was the only chick in Albany, too annoying for handsy Andy Cuomo to hit on.
Andy!
But she kept the job by running for re-election and saying, New Yorkers, you're MAGA. We don't want you here. Get out. Go away. Get out. Do you remember that? I don't want you here. She ran on Trump is bad. Okay. Trump's pretty popular right now. His economy's soaring. Liberals are giving credit for them. He has fundamentally changed world trade. He has secured the border. Interest rates should be a lot lower now, considering the success of the economy. But I'm not going to get into that sideshow. The point is, whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, the mayor of New York City running on screw Trump is not a deliverable for New York voters. It's not a plan to make the schools better. 70% of the kids in this city can't read. 70%. How do you make that better? By saying, well, Trump's the devil. Great. And for the people who are rich who live in this city and vote liberal, yes, they can continue to vote like politics is a team sport, where it's just more important to beat a Republican than it is to help your city prosper, because it doesn't affect them. They live on Park Avenue. They live on Fifth Avenue. They've got a house in the Hamptons. They go up in the fall to the Berkshires and hang out in Greenwich, Connecticut. None of this affects them. They'll be in Martha's Vineyard when you're getting mugged on the subway. So yes, it is the woke white people on the left who think they know what's best for the poor people in our city. And the reason I talk about this is because if it wins and the Democrats go, wow, there really are a lot of broke people out there who want to believe they'll get free stuff, we should run on that. And they'll run on that. Now, the good news is they don't traditionally have any history of keeping any of their promises. The Affordable Care Act by Barack Obama drove up health care premiums by over 300%.
I don't see you doing any better in the booty department.
Some people got it for free, as he promised. The rest of us got stuck paying for it. But he was like, don't worry, because nothing's going to change about your plan.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor. Period.
Except people weren't able to keep their doctors, and that was rated PolitiFact's Lie of the Year. Okay, Mamdani is the latest incarnation of an empty suit Obama. Pretty good campaigner, very popular on social media. That really wasn't a thing when Obama first ran nationally. But it's all straw man garbage. And the fact that Elizabeth Warren's now signing on and they're trying to make a larger push, like, yes, this is who the Democrat Party is. Well, you need to know that nationally, okay? You need to know that. This is what they want to do. If it can win here, it goes there. Politics is the reverse of like breakfast cereal when it comes to experimenting. Like traditionally, if you live in a smaller city around the country, that's where you might get the new Fruity Pebbles flavor. They don't start in New York where it's really expensive to put it on the shelf because there's millions of people there to buy it or, in our city's case, shoplift it. What they do is they would start like somewhere where Jenny was born, in Wapakoneta, Ohio. And you get the, Fruity Cocoa Nitro Pebbles or whatever they're test marking, and they throw it on the shelves with the other cereals and see how it sells. And if the thing gloms up a lot of market share, then they bring it to scale and they go into larger markets and they try to make it work. In politics, they do the opposite. They start in the big markets. If it can work here, they can pretty much force it on everybody else. Why? Because there's more money here that can flood the market there.
Money, 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 money.
It's everything in politics. So if New York can win on a socialist message, even though it's wildly liberal, again, their job is not necessarily to sell the rest of the country on socialism. It's to pretty much force it on them. That's what the Democrats have done with all their policies. You didn't go out and say, you know what, everybody likes electric vehicles now. No, they passed EV mandates. They didn't go out and explain that the vaccine would block transmission. They spent the campaign in 2020 bashing the vaccine. Then they got into office and were like, get it or you're fired. Okay, and that's how they got their way. Everything the Democrats do comes with a cosigner. Okay, it's some type of governmental pressure, some type of thumb on the scale economic move that puts you between a job and agreeing with them. In this instance, what they're really just trying to do is cater to stupid people, people whose emotions are their facts, and really rich white people who think they know better for poor people because they inherited cash, or something stupid that entitles them to some level of prosperity that they intellectually aren't justified to. And that's the thing about right now. Like, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to play you a clip in the next segment about CNBC throwing a challenge flag at Elizabeth Warren. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a very teachable moment to be learned here. Okay, and this is crazy stuff. But long story short, if you're paying attention to Mamdani, if you're paying attention to Elizabeth Warren, the only real reason the two of them are getting along at this point is because they're both a bunch of Indian givers. James Comer, House Oversight Committee, reaching out to everybody on the left side of the aisle right now. Over a dozen subpoenas have been issued to the Hillary Clintons of the world, the Bill Clintons of the world, and a host of other people in their orbit related to Epstein Island.
This is not okay.
Now, when it comes to that story, I'll believe it when I see it. It's very similar to the story surrounding Pam Bondi's grand jury. Okay, grand jury launched this morning. That will, in fact, has issued a justice referral to the DOJ. And she is seating a grand jury in an effort to see if they will criminally charge anybody who was associated with the Russian collusion narrative.
It was made up by these sick people.
That being said, I'm enjoying the window dressing from the right. I don't know how far this is going to go. And I've told you this in the past. I'm not a big fan of arresting your political opponents. That's not a thing. But the Democrats crossed a Rubicon when they locked up Trump for essentially paying Stormy Daniels by check when she normally gets paid in singles. It was not a situation that was even within its own statute of limitations at the time he was charged. Trump was the victim of a weaponized Justice Department. And a lot of people warned the Democrats at the time, hey, you're going to lose an election someday, and this could come back at you. And none of them felt that way. Apparently, they might have changed their opinion now because the hottest growth sector in America is lawyers inside the D.C. Beltway. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Eric Holder, Merrick Garland, Bill Barr, Loretta Lynch, James Comey, Robert Mueller, Jeff Sessions, Alberto Gonzalez, and that's not even everybody that's been subpoenaed to find out about this Epstein story. The Justice Department was also subpoenaed and ordered to turn over all Epstein files in its possessions with the victims' names redacted. Now, I don't even know what we'll get out of this. I've told you, I'm a little cynical on this story because of how many powerful people are involved. And I feel like we're getting a Hollywood no. What a Hollywood no is in Hollywood, people don't want to reject your ideas because you might become a big star someday and they want to work for you and they don't want it held against them. So everybody in Hollywood says yes, and then they just don't follow through.
That's just how white folks will do you.
Totally. Hey, you want to make my screenplay? Yeah, I love it. It's great. Let me find an actor. I'll get back to you. And you just never talk to him again. It's Hollywood now. Okay, when you run into the guy in 6 months of the party, you don't want to be mean and start a fight because you're like, well, he did say yes, and maybe he's going to do it. And no, they're just kind of stroking you along. And I feel like when it comes to the Epstein thing, the messaging on this has been everywhere. It started out with they had a big influencer event at the White House. Pam Bondi gave out binders titled Epstein Files Phase 1. Now, when you start numbering phases, you create the perception that there are going to be more phases.
I think he's got a point.
You know, you don't call it Star Wars Episode 3 if there's not going to be a 4, or if there weren't a 1 and 2. The point is, when you get into numbering things, there's usually a sequential reason. That being said, we went from Epstein Files Phase 1 to there are no more files. This is a bunch of hideous kiddie porn. Why are you people even talking about this? But saying, go home, everybody, it's just kiddie porn didn't obviously calm the story down. Why? Because saying it's a bunch of kiddie porn doesn't traditionally end the investigation. It begins the investigation. We go, oh, wait, what? Who got it? Where'd they get it from? Who was it shared with? Who opened the files? How do we find justice for these poor kids? And so none of the messaging worked. It went from, we're going to give you all the Epstein stuff, to actually there's no list at all. I know I said the list was on my desk and it was there with some other documents, but it turns out there's no list. It's just a bunch of videos. You get nothing. Stop talking about this. To now we're at everybody's been subpoenaed. We're going all in trying to get you an answer here. And I think it looks like window dressing to me. I don't know the answer. I don't know. It very much reminds me of the Russiagate thing. They're like one and the same story to me. A lot of powerful people involved. And the perception out there is that they did us all dirty. But is there actual accountability coming? I don't know. I guess no. I mean, if it happens and there's somebody who should have their nuts nailed to the wall politically, I'm all in because I don't want this going on. You know, and as a parent, I'm mindful of the fact that there are so many kids involved that I feel like we're all owed an answer. But more importantly than us, the kids. And what's happening right now is we're seeing a lot of subpoenas. This stuff looks good. People get excited. But it's, you know, very much feels like the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. Do you remember the old Peanuts episode where it's a Halloween special and Linus tells Lucy, you got to get down to the pumpkin patch on Halloween. The Great Pumpkin is going to fly over and it's going to give us all kinds of treats. It's going to be the wildest Halloween ever. You got to be in the pumpkin patch when the Great Pumpkin gets there. He's going to hook it up.
You must be crazy. When are you going to stop believing in something that isn't true?
Okay, well, that was Charlie Brown to his sister, who at the time, Sally, was like, no. She liked Linus. She's like, you don't understand. Linus knows the Great Pumpkin. He's going to be at the pumpkin patch. We got to get down there. The Great Pumpkin's coming. We're all going to get hooked up. Next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. There's no Great Pumpkin.
You blockhead!
Sally's not happy. Okay, I very much feel that when it comes to things like Epstein, when it comes to things like Russiagate, you can run a lot of clock by promising us this Great Pumpkin. It's coming. You don't understand. People are going to jail. We got a list. They're going down. And we're all like, whoa, yeah, great. And then like the midterms happen and they're like, not right now. People are campaigning. summer recess. Maybe not. We're out of session. You know, things like that. Lo and behold, it winds up being 2025 or, 26, 27. Now we're talking about the general election. Next thing you know, the Great Pumpkin's, he's on vacation.
This is politics as usual.
Nah, the Great Pumpkin, he's doing an American Eagle commercial. He's not coming. He's got a modeling deal, something about his jeans. It's a good-sized pumpkin. So I don't know that it's going anywhere in Washington right now. I don't have a good handle on this. And I like to be honest with you. Because I think too much of talk radio and I think too much of political analysis has to come in absolutes, because everyone's job as a host is to make you passionate about what you're tuning into, fire you up. I don't subscribe to that business model. It's where I'm fundamentally bad at this, is I want to live in a world where I could broadcast with a conscience, so I don't want to jazz you up on things I don't believe are true or don't have a good instinctive handle on. Could I see a world where the Republicans do a two-can-play at that game thing with the Democrats and start locking people up for breaking laws we know they broke? Yeah. Okay, again, they raided Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago with guns drawn. We've had this conversation. Melania Trump wouldn't meet with Jill Biden because the FBI went through her underwear drawer. I don't blame Melania. I don't blame the FBI either. I mean, come on, man. Have you seen Melania? I have. No offense, Mr. President. But if somebody hands me a warrant and shoves me into that friggin' bedroom, you might look around a little bit, a few minutes longer than you're supposed to. You know what I'm saying?
I admire your honesty.
Being silly. But the point is, yeah, I could see a world where the Republicans were like, no, this thing needs to be stopped dead in its tracks. Because the reality is, every Democrat, when James Comey was doing those Colbert episodes about briefing Trump, he knew he was lying about the Russian story. When Hillary Clinton was going on Rachel Maddow, knew he was lying. When Chuck Schumer went on Rachel Maddow, as Jim Jordan brought up yesterday, and said Trump pissed off the intelligence community, they've got a million ways to get you back, he was telling the truth.
Let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them.
Whoa, did you hear Chuck Schumer? I mean, really think about that. And he was actually telling you the truth. The intel community was mad, and they did fabricate a hoax to try and take down the Trump presidency. Like, we know that to be true. I don't know if it's technically illegal. Is it cheating? Yeah. Is it some level of, I guess we'd call it post-election or even, election interference? Maybe. But I don't know if it's illegal. I know it's disgusting. I know it's morally depraved. Okay, here is Eli Honig on CNN. And I give you his analysis because Eli Honig was giving you the best analysis of the Trump prosecutions, outside of this channel. Like I said, when I'm trying to make points, I don't use Fox talent to make them because I don't want people going, oh, yeah, of course, that's what the Fox guy says. No, if I'm trying to make a point, it's because there's an actual legitimate consensus from people that are bargaining with you in good faith. Eli Honig said Trump shouldn't have been charged, and nobody in the history of our republic would have been charged for the crimes he was charged with. That Donald Trump is the only person in history who would be eligible for these charges for no other reason than the Democrats had manufactured a hysteria that in their worldview justified any means necessary to stop Donald Trump.
Wrong.
But that's the world they were living in. Eli Honig, to his credit, on CNN, was like, nah, this is all garbage. So I'm very interested to hear what he has to say about the Obama administration, and it doesn't sound like he thinks they're going to get charged. Clip 32.
What's the crime? I mean, what's even the potential crime? Seriously, I mean, I'm not trying to be confrontational here. Can anyone at this table even articulate what the potential crime might be?
I mean, election interference, manufactured intelligence,
not a crime, not a
deprivation
crime.
of
You're 0 for 2.
rights,
not a crime.
Obstruction of justice, false statements.
You've said a crime now. What is obstruction of justice?
And anything the grand jury says it is.
No, and to that point, let me further say with this.
Most of these crimes have a statute of limitation of 5 years.
There you go. That's where I was going next.
So that's the problem.
I mean, this is ancient history legally, right? The statute of limitations on almost every federal crime is 5 years. This stuff was 9 years ago.
There's an ongoing conspiracy, and so that could
Sure. If there's an ongoing conspiracy that stretches into 5 years ago, then you would not have a statute of limitations problem.
So what he's saying is we're beyond the statute of limitations for most of this. And unless there's some ongoing conspiracy we don't know about, it's probably not going to rise to the level of any of the key people we want charged getting charged. Like, that's just reality. I think what you're learning here is how morally bankrupt these people were. And I think the larger teachable lesson here is that everybody who told you they were protecting democracy was doing a lot of things behind the scenes to subvert it. And that most of the Democrat playbook is an exercise in projection. Accuse your opponent of what you're doing. Do you remember when they impeached Donald Trump because he was looking into wrongdoing in Ukraine involving Joe Biden? Okay, they were like, Donald Trump threatened to withhold aid from Ukraine. That's treason. But he was actually looking into Joe Biden's threat to withhold aid from Ukraine. We only know that because Joe Biden bragged about doing it.
I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
So that's Joe Biden actually bragging that, yeah, we owed Ukraine $1 billion in foreign aid. I said, nope, fire the prosecutor. You know, the prosecutor looking into the company doing business with his family. Do what I want, or you're not getting $1 billion. I'll put Obama on the phone. That's the actual report Trump was looking into, the threat of Biden withholding aid. And the Democrats accused Trump of doing what they did and impeached a president. This comes after they started their own Russia hoax, leaked it to the media, gave it to the FBI, and then they all collectively went on TV and was like, yeah, Russia, what's up with that? But everybody involved knew it was made up out of thin air. And I think that's the larger teachable moment. You know, are these people all going to jail? No. Should some of them? Yeah. But the reality is, going forward, I think what we need to walk away from this knowing is that nothing is beneath them when it comes to stopping Donald Trump. They made up the Russia hoax, held the country hostage for 3 years. And essentially, it was their way to slow down Trump in governance, just the way these appellate court judges are there to issue nationwide injunctions and force him to appeal to the Supreme Court, so it just takes longer for him to get his way. But again, that's not protecting democracy. That's not respecting democracy. That's getting in the way of what the people want. And that's why I say this all the time. It's like, do we really run the government, or does the government run us? Stories like this, they make me feel like we work for them and not vice versa. If you're listening to the show day in and day out, we have a very simple magic trick. I'm new to media, and I care. Okay, I'm trying to help the country. I'm always thinking of ideas and ways to approach these angles that might benefit all of us, meaning Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians. You could be a member of the Whig Party, like Maxine Waters. I don't care. Okay, I just want people to be happy, because if you die tomorrow, you're going to wish you had more fun today. That's the secret to life. We're all in the fun business. Whatever you've been tasked with doing today, the job is to get it done, do it well, so you create a market for your services in other areas. But more importantly than that, have a damn good time doing it. Be a force multiplier of positive energy. Now, I know not everybody out there listening is a drinker. I'm not nearly as bad of a drinker as it makes it sound like when you listen to me and Kennedy on the show.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
No, I mean, I drink here or there. But the point is, I have found Bud Light. I have found beer over the course of my existence to be an enjoyable pastime, meaning, you know, you drink one at the game. As Brian Brenberg says, beer is not for activism. Beer is for inactivism. Well, lo and behold, back in March of 2023, Bud Light made a wrong turn into an activist lane.
That's stupid. Use your common sense.
As the old story goes, you now know this, they hired Sydney Sweeney. But in this instance, it wasn't Sydney Sweeney. It was Dylan Mulvaney, a.k.a. Sydney Weenie. Justice Sydney Sweeney is the face of the American Eagle ad campaign and the most trendy thing out there in advertising. The stock price soared by 23%. Trump gave her a big shout out on Truth Social. In March of 23, when they replaced all of the advertisements with things that traditionally got people engaged, and they started forcing a DEI agenda and they started turning over the marketing firms to people who wanted their ideology forced down your throat, Bud Light made a near fatal decision to hand the keys to the car to someone who didn't understand the customer base, meaning guys who drank Bud Light were what? Fun-loving guys. They liked girls. They liked jokes about their anatomy, and they liked just kind of being. They didn't turn to Bud Light because they wanted to swing the midterm election. But the woman who took over Bud Light's marketing department at the time went all in on a trans influencer named Dylan Mulvaney. I keep saying this, and said, here, Dylan, take the keys to the car. As you know, nationwide boycott ensued. People started referring to Bud Light as tranny fluid. And they went from being the #1 beer producer in the world to they fell way down. Basically, the #1 beer producer, the king of beers, turned into the Rodney king of beers. And they went from being a brand that was known for funny commercials to a national punchline. Everybody listening on 97.1 FM Talk knows this story all too well. I will be out there in Chesterfield in January. You come out January 24th. Jimmy's going to be telling jokes on the weekend. Get your tickets, foxacrossamerica.com. But stick with me. What Bud Light has an opportunity to do right now, and I wrote about this today at foxnews.com, Bud Light should actually hire Sydney Sweeney immediately and go all in on the culture war position that they abandoned years back.
I'm telling you, that boy's a genius.
Straight genius. It would make them so much money, because their customer base would finally get to give that middle finger back to the woke crowd who nearly tanked the Bud Light brand and alienated all of its consumers. Sydney Sweeney is the most popular person in advertising right now. That's #1. But #2, she's a hot girl who likes funny jokes. She's a hot girl who doesn't apologize for her femininity. Okay, Sydney Sweeney, if you remember, was selling her used bathwater 4 or 5 months back. She's a capitalist, and she's leaning into I'm a hot girl. There's a market for me being a hot girl. I don't have to be ashamed of this. Shake what your mama gave you. Okay? If you are born into a God-given voice, you don't go, well, I'm not going to sing, because not everybody can sing like this. You know, if you're a guy who can hit a baseball, you don't go, well, I'm not going to try out for the major leagues and make millions of dollars, because not everybody was born into this level of talent. Okay, no, you lean into your God-given attributes. You celebrate them. It's something we all traditionally did before cancel culture came along and taught people to police sources of fun for sources of anger. You used to go to a comedy show to laugh, but the cancel crowd was like, no, we got to make sure these jokes are punching up. They better not be punching down. They better not be going after the trans community. No marginalized members of society. Guys, comedy is the ultimate form of equality. If you're getting made fun of at a comedy show, it means you're mainstream and we all know who you are. If somebody sticks you off in the corner and says they can't be made fun of, you're at the kiddie table, like an infantilized lesser than. And we all knew that about comedy. But in the era of woke outrage, a lot of corporations distanced themselves from what they knew to be true because they didn't want the blowback from the outrage mob on social media. It was never a prevailing sentiment. It was always a tyranny of the minority. But that minority got a hold of a lot of corporations and brought in woke advertising teams. I've said this before. We used to have Mad Men. They were replaced by Mad Them. You didn't get Don Draper. You got Dawn Draper. You didn't get Sydney Sweeney. You got Dylan Mulvaney, a.k.a. Sydney Weenie. Okay, that was the reality. But what Bud Light has an opportunity to do right now, and I mean come all the way back. Who doesn't like a great American comeback story? I don't want to live in an America where we're mad at our domestic beer brands. Like they're just supposed to be subject to eternal damnation because we don't like that they took the wrong side of the culture war. Well, they rectified it because they fired that whole marketing team. And if they come in now and take the right side of the culture war, I'm telling you, their profits will come stampeding back. I wrote this op-ed. It's at foxnews.com. It's also in my Twitter feed at Jimmy Fela. And if you read it, you'll understand. Like I'm bargaining with you in good faith. What we did right now in the last couple of years is we had broken the compass. There were a lot of things that didn't matter and shouldn't have mattered that were given a heightened sense of import. Because what the woke activists focus on is not activism, it's slacktivism. We don't sit here as a country and have fights on how to make the city safer. We have fights on whether or not the Washington Redskins mascot is racist, whether or not the American Eagle jeans commercial is an ode to Adolf Hitler, which I can assure you it's not. American Eagle has a Jewish CEO. I'm telling you, there aren't a lot of Jews out there stumping for Hitler these days. There just aren't. But the reality is, because the woke left prioritizes superficial things that are attached to corporations, they got very used to getting their way. Because if you're a corporation, you sell football tickets. You know, you sell pants. Whatever you sell breakfast syrup in Aunt Jemima's case. The last thing on earth you want associated with your brand is an allegation of racism. So traditionally, you capitulate to the mob even if you think they're wrong just to make the problem go away. Unfortunately, every time a company bent the knee, it created the impression that these cancel people had a point. Maybe they were moral and righteous and just by telling Aunt Jemima she needed to go away. And the 3 black families who'd been receiving royalties the past 130 years could no longer make money because the pancakes were racist. That's what the woke white people did. They canceled royalties for 3 generations of Aunt Jemimas. They nuked Mrs. Butterworth and the family that portrayed her. Uncle Ben's rice. Do you know the story of Uncle Ben's rice? It's bananas. Uncle Ben's rice was invented in Texas. Okay, and they wanted to honor a farmer who grew a long grain of rice that they thought was phenomenal. And the 2 guys that commercialized it couldn't persuade the farmer to be the face of the brand, so they decided they needed a corporate pitchman. And one night met a talkative and very engaging black waiter at a steakhouse in Chicago. Lo and behold, they asked him if he wanted to be the face of a rice brand. He thought it was absurd and crazy and too good to be true, but said yes to see where it went. Lo and behold, his family became the 80-year face of Uncle Ben's rice. Until 2020 came and the woke left was putting all kinds of corporate pressure on people to cancel things that they were accusing of racism, which lo and behold led to Uncle Ben's family getting whacked out of their royalty checks. The Land O'Lakes Indian on the butter thing, no mo! They got rid of all of it. Washington Redskins, Cleveland Indians. Did that improve the quality of life for any of these aggrieved communities? Nope. You don't turn around an Indian reservation by changing the halftime show. You don't improve test scores in inner city schools that are failing by whacking Aunt Jemima. This stuff just doesn't happen. You can't lower crime by telling Uncle Ben's family they don't get rice money anymore. It's bananas. It's all slacktivism. But you see, this was never a movement. This was never a movement for progress. It was a movement of power. These were losers, blue-haired chicks with nose rings screaming into their iPhones on TikTok who just wanted to control the world. That's why things like climate change appeal to them. They accuse you of murdering the planet and force you to upend your whole entire lifestyle to accommodate their agenda, which, by the way, changes 4 years. Every 4 years, the climate change agenda changes. The only thing that stays the same is the request.
Please give us money.
Did I play you this one yesterday? It's so good. Every time I dig one of these up, I have to play it. Here's a montage 4 years apart. You got Leonard Nimoy on the news. You got Dan Rather on the news. 4 years apart, from 1978 to 1982. Tell me if you notice any difference in the message. 4 years apart, scientists have agreed. Science is settled. What we now know. What we now know is these are 2 completely different messages. Take a look, clip 36.
What scientists are telling us now is that the threat of an ice age is not as remote as they once thought. During the lifetime of our grandchildren, Arctic cold and perpetual snow could turn most of the inhabitable portions of our planet into a polar desert.
Concern about rising temperatures on planet Earth heated up a hearing here in Washington today. For years, scientists have theorized about the dangers of the so-called greenhouse effect, the warming of the Earth's atmosphere due to the burning of coal and oil.
I mean,
you're all a bunch of grifters.
Straight grifters. 1978, what scientists are telling us now is the threat of an ice age. Not remote at all. 4 years later. Concerned about rising temperatures on planet Earth heating up, a hearing in Washington today, scientists for years have theorized about the dangers of the greenhouse effect, the warming of the Earth's atmosphere. So in 78, scientists were all going to freeze. 82, scientists were all going to melt. And it's gone on and on. But the people on the left that gravitate towards that stuff don't have any data other than the fact that the people giving you these gloom and doom sermons are getting rich.
We're paying in cash.
Big money. Big money. Big data? No, not even close, not even a little. But they love stuff like that. That's why they love the trans agenda. It was a manufactured civil rights movement. And most people saw through it. Okay? 80% of the American population does not believe biological men should be competing against biological women. Okay? 100% of the American population, if they pass biology, know that men can't have babies. Yet in the summer of 2023, Dylan Mulvaney was given a Tampax endorsement for a biological man.
Well, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard of.
Couldn't menstruate, but lo and behold, she's now pretend endorsing. Number one, biological fallacy. Number two, taking away modeling opportunities from actual women. Dylan Mulvaney also got an endorsement deal from Nike to model women's athletic wear. Okay, and this was controversial stuff, but the crescendo was they took Dylan Mulvaney and made her the face of the biggest beer brand in the world, a brand that was known for hot chicks and humor. That's the entire Bud Light brand was built on hot chicks and humor. Well, one day, instead of a hot chick, they had a dude. They had Dylan Mulvaney. And Bud Light learned that painful lesson that Dylan Mulvaney was not what the customers meant when they asked the bartender for a beer with some nuts. Okay, it backfired spectacularly. And they've alienated their base. And to this day, I told you, this is funny. I was at a Yankee game with Lincoln 2 months ago, and the beer guy was just selling Bud Light. I don't care. I'm not doing politics at the baseball game. I bought a Bud Light and got screamed at. Someone's like, I can't believe you're drinking that tranny fluid. I thought you worked at Fox. I'm like, listen, Fox ain't mad at Bud Light. I don't like what their marketing team did, but I'm not sitting here trying to tear down an American brand. I'm trying to make beer sales great again. That's why I'm telling you, if Bud Light hires Sydney Sweeney, they give the same middle finger back to the woke left that they originally alienated their base with. And some people might say, well, that's just pandering. That's just, Bud Light getting back into politics. You said you didn't like beers and politics. No, I didn't. I didn't make the rules. They did. Okay, Bud Light's stock is down 11.5% this quarter. They're losing market share. They're losing money. You know who's not losing money? Brands that align with Sydney Sweeney. You know who's not losing money? Brands that give the customer what they want. Okay, Bud Light, you remember the old adage, the customer's always right? Okay, well, your customer base loves hot chicks. They love big boobs, and they love giving the woke left the middle finger. So if there's anything America should be able to drink to, Bud Light, it is that.